And it's gone. We're good.
All right. Hey, everybody. The Roundtable here again, trying to do a Google Hangout. Hopefully it works. I wasn't here for the second Google Hangout that Greg and Matt did, but we're back here, summertime Google Hangout edition. And because it's summer, it's time for basketball, as always with us. We're going to talk a little bit of the coaching carousel. We're going to talk a little bit about the NBA Finals that are coming up on June 4th. But, of course, because Matt and I, both Chicago fans, we'd really like to talk about Fred Hoiberg, the coaching change that happened in Chicago. Bulls fire Tom Thibodeau. They bring in Fred Hoiberg a couple days later. From what I've heard from Hoiberg, he's a player's coach. He's very laid back, kind of the opposite of what Tom Thibodeau was to the Bulls. And I'm sure the players are going to be very happy for him to be at the helm for the next 5 years, which is how long his contract is.
Yeah, no, there's no question. He's definitely – it's not he's maybe the opposite. He definitely is the opposite of what Tom Thibodeau was. I mean, a lot of people in Chicago don't really know what to think about the whole situation. I think that's pretty safe to assume. Tom Thibodeau was a pretty successful coach in Chicago during the regular season, but when it came to the playoffs, he didn't have as much success as everybody would have thought, but he also only had his best player, Derrick Rose, for 2 seasons. So, take of it what you want. Maybe he didn't have the best situation throughout. I have a theory that management kind of put him in a bad situation, tried to make him the scapegoat for the season, and that in turn made it really easy for them to fire him because they just didn't like him, they didn't get along with him, and we've seen this the past 3 coaching hires for John Paxson and Gar Forman. So, I don't know, it's a really frustrating time, I think, for a lot of Chicago Bulls fans. Fred Hoiberg, I don't know if he's the answer, but he's certainly the last coaching choice, it seems like, for Gar Paxson and John Foreman, because if this thing doesn't work out, then they're most likely gone as well in the next couple of years.
Well, as the one non-Chicagoan, I think it's my job to really irritate everyone who's a Bulls fan. And I really think you guys just made a bad hire. I think Alvin Gentry was there for the taking, and apparently Hoiberg is friends with all the Bulls management guys, so that's why they got him. But Alvin Gentry is going to be really good, and getting him on New Orleans is probably the best hire the last couple of years. Like, I could see him being a Coach of the Year candidate in a couple of years, especially if Anthony Davis keeps on progressing.
But Alvin Gentry hasn't had the type of success that everybody has been saying that he's had, basically. He is only a mediocre coach in the NBA, about a 500 coach. I mean, I guess, it depends on the roster, whatever it may be. New Orleans doesn't have that good of a roster besides for Anthony Davis.
Well, he was 2 games away from the NBA Finals with tired Steve Nash and Jared Dudley and corpses of players who used to be good on the Suns. It was just a mishmash of everything, and they still nearly made the NBA Finals if it wasn't for Ron Artest's ridiculous putback at the last second and Kobe going hot in Game 6. I mean, he was right there, and I think this team could be better than that one.
This move is going to help Anthony Davis tremendously. I mean, this is the guy that's going to be finally kind of the center. He was the center of the offense, but the offense wasn't really built for his success. And now with Gentry coming in, he knows how to run an offense. He's done it before. He's had people like Amari Stoudemire. Now, granted, Anthony Davis is more of a freak in terms of height and skill than Amari Stoudemire. But if we see what he did with him, he's going to do that probably tenfold with Anthony Davis, being able to run pick and rolls, being for him on the defensive side, and to improve him on the offensive side. So, yeah, I mean, Greg, I can definitely see Gentry being a Coach of the Year candidate if this team can improve. The Pelicans, they made the playoffs this year. They were the 8th seed, but they have the ceiling that's tremendously high now with this Gentry hiring.
Well, I think that the Gentry hiring and the Scott Skiles hiring in Orlando are 2 great hires. When they're talking about Tom Thibodeau, going to the New Orleans Pelicans, I didn't think that would have been a good hire. I feel like Tom Thibodeau is that type of guy, that type of coach where you bring him in when you're set to go for a championship. Now, is he going to get you there? That's the question. I'm not really sure. But Alvin Gentry is going to be that guy that's going to be able to help Anthony Davis get to that next level. He might also be able to be that guy that could get them to an NBA Finals. Like Greg said, he did it almost in Phoenix. So, I think that he's a better coach for the current situation of the New Orleans Pelicans. Also, I think Scott Skiles is a great coach for the Orlando Magic. Fred Hoiberg with the Bulls, I think it's just it all goes back to their front office and just how much of a disaster the Chicago Bulls front office is and has been for the past couple of years.
Yeah, Nick. Greg, go ahead.
Well, going back to Tibbs for a second, do you think they should have kept him? I mean, I think it was just too chaotic a situation. It wasn't happening.
Yeah, I don't think they definitely should. They should not have kept him. I mean, the rumors going around Chicago right now, and I think they're true, or the reports, I guess, now is that a lot of these players, what I heard was Butler, Noah, and Gasol, when they all had meetings with the front office with Gar and Pax, they all said, we're not staying in Chicago. We're not going to practice at the Advocate Center downtown if Tom Thibodeau is still the coach, just because of how grueling of a process and how grueling his practices were. So once you have players going to management, telling them they just don't want to play for this coach anymore, it's time for him to go. I mean, it was a bad situation that the front office put him in. They really did not play him up probably as much as they should be. I mean, in the press release when they fired him, they said he had some success with the Bulls. Well,
Yeah.
statistically, this guy was one of the greatest coaches in history in terms of regular season records. So you could tell they just really did not like the guy a lot. But it'll be interesting to see how Hoiberg comes in and he's able to get these players on his side. He is a young coach. He did play for the Bulls. He kind of knows the culture around the United Center. But he's coming into a roster that is stacked and ready to win, and it's up to him to kind of infuse his own culture into that as well.
Yeah, the Bulls fans should really be treading on pretty testy waters. I guess that's the phrase. I'm not really sure, but basically, Bulls fans should not be very happy with what's been going down with their organization at this point. There's been reports that from the beginning of the season, if not even last year, the front office was trying to get Tom Thibodeau out of there by inserting thoughts into players' minds, saying, we have your best interest in mind, Tom Thibodeau doesn't, listen to us, don't listen to him, that type of a thing. And then throughout the course of the season, all this stuff's been coming out. They've been going back and forth. Thibodeau, has been coming out with stuff, whether it's just been like the minutes restrictions or it's been Jeff Van Gundy coming out and saying stuff toward Jerry Reinsdorf and everything like that. So you get all these guys going back and forth. And then it just came to a point where it was too toxic of a situation for Tom Thibodeau to continue. So I think he's the right coach. Maybe, I don't know. I think you keep him going because Derrick Rose hasn't been healthy the past couple of years. But it wasn't working out in terms of a relationship. And in that sense, it needs to be gone. But the front office had a lot to do with that.
I think the minutes thing is key. There were a lot of reports after Thibodeau got fired that the front office was showing him reports from teams like Houston and San Antonio who were resting their players and how it led to sustained success. And there was just a clash there. And Hoiberg has already said that he was going to rest his players and he's not going to take that same mentality as Thibs. So that was probably one of the key basketball decisions that came around with it.
This is an opportunity for the Bulls to really clean everything up because the past couple of years it's just been so toxic, and it obviously got to the point where they needed to fire Tom Thibodeau. They brought in a special trainer for Derrick Rose, and then she helped out like certain players, and other players just had to go with the Chicago Bulls trainer. And it got to the point where like Derrick Rose was being coddled while other players were being worked to the bone. Guys weren't practicing. All this stuff was coming out. Everybody was talking within the organization behind each other's backs. It was just such a bad situation. So now here's an opportunity for them to refresh it. The thing is, though, apparently Tom Thibodeau wasn't Gar Forman and John Paxson's pick to be the head coach. It was Jerry Reinsdorf, the owner. Same thing with Scott Skiles and Vinny Del Negro. So the GM and the VP of basketball operations, who are the people that are supposed to be picking the head coach, haven't even been picking the head coach the past 3 years, or past 4 opportunities. So I just don't get this whole Bulls organization. Finally they got their guy, apparently. They got Fred Hoiberg, that's their guy. But it hasn't been like that, so really it's no surprise if these guys haven't been able to get along. So I'm kind of interested to see what happens.
I don't know. It is kind of, in that way, it is not a surprise, but I kind of disagree with that because I think these guys, they're at the highest level of their management. And I think that in a situation like this, even if they have a coach where they didn't necessarily think of or want to bring on, they still need to act professional. And I think the whole situation the past year, even the past 5 years, Thibodeau and the front office, all three of them, that acted very childish throughout this whole thing, and that just led through a downfall. If they would have been more professional, if they would not have gone months and weeks without talking to each other, which is what reports came out that Foreman and Thibodeau hadn't talked since November, which is completely unacceptable for an NBA team, and it's just frankly childish. And I think all three of them should be condemned for doing this. And if Hoiberg does succeed, it'll be on Gar and Pax, and it'll look good on them. But if Hoiberg is a huge failure as a coach and this team doesn't live up to expectations, Foreman and Paxson have to go down with him.
And when we talk about professionalism, I think we also have to touch on the press release the Bulls sent out. in which they basically threw Tibbs under the bus. They said so many negative things about him. I mean, this is a coach looking to get hired, and they're basically just destroying his reputation. I mean, it was disgusting. I mean, this is a guy who's been around this organization, led them to some. I mean, they got to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they've been a great regular season team.
He had a 600 winning percentage without
they
Derrick
just
Rose.
It was just awful.
But apparently,
why would a coach want to work for them?
Apparently, there has been some talks between front office staffs at different teams, and they all are giving Thibodeau the benefit of the doubt here. So that's a good thing. At least his reputation doesn't seem to be hurt too much, because apparently they do know that the Bulls organization is just super unprofessional and has been for the past couple of years. Really, going back to the days of Michael Jordan, has been unprofessional. So there's really no hope for this organization, it seems like. But I mean, that's a whole nother conversation for another day in terms of like if Hoiberg's going to be successful. I mean, I do think that like Gentry and Scott Skiles, though, great choices for the Orlando Magic and for the New Orleans Pelicans.
Well, while we're on the topic of coaches, Greg, I want to get your viewpoint, or at least Washington's viewpoint, on how they view Randy Whitman right now. I mean, obviously, before the playoffs started, people were saying, fire Whitman, he's gone, he needs to be gone. He took him through 2 rounds of the playoffs. What is the talk around Washington right now with Randy Whitman?
I still don't think Whitman is the coach of the future in Washington. I mean, he can't even hold a clipboard correctly. We saw that. It's twice. It's multiple times. Bradley Beal's just staring at him like, what the hell are you doing?
Almost as bad as David Blatt.
It's just, he's not going anywhere. The front office loves him. They need to, at least, at the best, lose in the first round next year for them to even consider firing him, but I really want Thibodeau. I think Thibodeau can be the coach that gets Washington to the Eastern Conference Finals and gets them actually past like where they've been the past couple of years in the second tier of the East, maybe second and a half, third tier. If they could get a real coach, I mean, John Wall's a top 10, top 15 player in this league, and they have enough talent around him that they can really be a formidable opponent in at least the East.
Well, if you get this year with Randy Whitman, and assuming Tom Thibodeau sits out, assuming that the Cleveland Cavaliers don't snatch him up when they fire David Blatt, depending on whenever their season ends, they will fire him. I guarantee you that.
This season, you think, or next season?
If they win the title, they'll fire him. I think. But
you're next.
I think so. But whatever it is, if Tom Thibodeau doesn't get snatched up, and he's a free agent head coach next year, Washington Wizards are picking him up, and they're going to sign Durant.
Yeah.
And that team is going to be unstoppable until Tom Thibodeau runs them into the ground.
I'm crying a little right now because it's here.
You're going to be crying as why is Tom Thibodeau running my players into the ground? We all felt it. It's annoying.
Give me a championship and you can play everyone 50 minutes a game.
Fair enough.
That's the thing. Where does Thibodeau go now? Now, the Pelicans, who are a destination for him, the Magic, who are a destination for him, they're taken. The coaching spots are taken. So where does he go from here? Is he going to sit out this next season?
They're thinking he's going to sit out this next season. They're saying he's going to kind of hop around between NBA teams and NCAA college teams, and do a little bit of like brief coaching stints, because he'll almost be like just like a special assistant. It kind of seems like, where he'll come in for maybe a defensive clinic or something like that. Yeah. He's getting paid $4.5 million, so he's going to be sitting there watching game film all day. It's just a matter of if he's going to be coaching anybody, which I don't really think he will be.
I saw a report that he may sign a 1-year contract with the Clippers.
Yeah, Doc Rivers.
As a defensive coordinator for them, or like a associate head coach, or one of those things that whatever they call it nowadays. And he would be there for a year, and then once the next season opened up and coaching hires, he'd go somewhere else, hopefully Washington.
That makes sense, too. I could see that happening.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he'll go back to being a defensive coordinator for a team. I think that's what all the Bulls needed, was some offensive-minded coach, but management got rid of Ron Adams, and they clearly didn't want Thibodeau to succeed there. But before we go on to talking about the NBA Finals, some IU basketball news, which I think is kind of fun to talk about right now, and it kind of is affected by the Fred Hoiberg. Actually, it is affected by Fred Hoiberg's decision to go to the Bulls. Is now Max Bielefeld, I think I pronounced his name correctly, going to IU now, as he's won Michigan Sixth Man of the Year. He's good off the bench, and he's just another body that IU's picking up in this what's turning out to be a tremendous offseason for them.
Veteran big man talent, too.
Are you guys?
When you lose a veteran big man like Hunter Mosquera Perea, I mean, those are big shoes to fill, and there's a lot of charges you have to get the next season. So I think we can see that from Max. I'm excited.
Yeah, Bielfeldt is his last name. But Greg, you said you were going to get a tattoo, so
I did.
So I'm for that one. Honestly, I think this team is a Sweet 16 or bust team this year again. Probably even better than that. We'll see how Crean coaches that.
Well, as we talked about before, they're winning the whole thing because I'm not going to be there. I'm going to be overseas in London, so they're winning a championship.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what happens. You got to imagine, with all the heat that Tom Crean's taken over the past 2 years, you have to imagine that he's going to make some sort of adjustment to his coaching style. Whatever it is, I think he's got a pretty solid roster, and now picking up some more low-post veteran defensive talent is going to really help him because they lost Hunter Mascara-Perea. All he was really a body. He didn't do a whole heck of a lot. Now this guy's going to be able to bring you some sort of talent. So I think that's going to help him out a lot. Be interested to see what Troy Williams does because apparently he's really working on his game. Can he take a Victor Oladipo type of step? Be interested to see James Blackman Jr. You got to imagine he's doing the same thing as well.
If Williams improves, at least his jump shot and his ball handling, he could go to the NBA next year. I would not doubt him leaving next year after the season.
This team should be ranked all year. If there's any sort of upsets throughout the course of the season, it's going to be a pretty big failure. And Tom Crean should be fired at that point.
Well, they go to Duke in December.
That's going to be a lot of fun. That's going to be an interesting
I'm excited
game.
for that.
I don't know if they'll win that one, but that'll be an interesting game.
We got to try to get there. We got to try to do a roundtable live from Durham.
I wouldn't be opposed to it.
We'll see how this one goes, though. All right, so let's move on to the NBA Finals, of course. They start June 4th. The guys have been off for quite a while now. They've had quite a break. But it's the finals that I think a lot of people expected. Golden State, Cleveland, LeBron, Steph Curry, Steve Kerr, David Blatt, first-year coaches in the finals. It's going to be a good finals, and I think it's going to go to 7 games. But we'll have to see how Curry lives up to the finals expectations. We know LeBron can do what LeBron's doing. I think this has been his best postseason in a while since his first finals run championship in 2011. So I think this is going to be one of the best finals we've seen in a while.
Well, this thing, first off, disproves my theory that a first-year head coach can't win an NBA title. Because it's going to happen now, but it hasn't happened since 1987 with Pat Riley, so let's think about that.
Fred Hoiberg.
Well, it's going to happen now before Fred Hoiberg. We'll see what happens next year with the Bulls. But I don't know. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I think that I'm really curious to see what exactly Cleveland's going to be able to do because they're finally facing a team that's going to be competitive with them. The Bulls gave them a shot or two along the way, but it really didn't derail them in any sort of fashion because they went out to sweep the Hawks. That series was a joke. So we'll see what the Golden State Warriors can do. Both these teams like to run. Both these teams can shoot. But I think what the Golden State Warriors have that other teams didn't is they have the ability to match up with these guys one-on-one. They have the ability to match up with LeBron one-on-one, Kyrie Irving one-on-one, J.R. Smith, Amon Shumpert. The Bulls didn't have that. The Hawks definitely did not have that. It's something that the Golden State Warriors are going to be able to have. They're young enough. They're quick enough. They're athletic enough to be able to do it. So that's going to be a lot of fun to watch and pretty interesting.
Yeah, as excited as I am for this series, I can see the Warriors winning this handily in like 5 or 6 games, but in those 4 wins, they really blow them out. They're coming from the loaded Western Conference, and they've been the better team all season. And I just don't think J.R. Smith, Iman Shumpert, Tristan Thompson, these guys who have that big impact for the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to be able to do that against a loaded Warriors team. I mean, this is one of the best teams we've seen in this decade at least. I mean,
they can go 10 players deep. They can go 10 players deep and be extremely effective in doing so. You saw everybody else. They kind of cut down their benches as the series goes on, as the playoffs go on. You haven't really seen that with the Warriors. They still bring in the same guys, and they're consistently keeping up that pace that was set by Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. This is something that really hasn't been seen in a long time in the NBA.
I think the most exciting part about the Warriors is that even when they're down, say, 15, 20 points, they're still in the game because of their three-point shooting. And that's something that Cleveland hasn't really been used to on their playoff run. The Bulls, maybe they were down 15-20 at some points and were able to make a bit of a comeback, but nothing like we've seen from Golden State when they've been down and out. And people have considered them down and out, and they've been able to come back and win games.
And another thing that Golden State can do that the Bulls and the Hawks haven't been able to do is they could go small with Cleveland. I mean, they could throw Draymond Green at the center position and still have a stacked lineup that can match up almost perfectly in terms of height with the Cleveland Cavaliers. So they're going to have a lot of trouble, in my opinion. I think, LeBron, you could almost let him do his thing and shut down everybody else. I mean, you could shut down J.R. Smith and Amon Shumpert with just one guy. You don't have to double team them. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what type of adjustments the Cavs are going to be able to make, because they're going to have to make adjustments from the past couple series.
Well, the other day people were tweeting hot takes about the NBA Finals because we're still so far away from it. And I tweeted that Draymond Green, I said when the Warriors win, but if they win, should be the Finals MVP. I really think he's going to be the X factor this series because he's a player who can guard LeBron. He can guard anyone from point guard to center. He's one of those players, him and Kawhi and LeBron are those who can play anyone. And his fast break, like his ability to find the open guy in the corner, he's the most important player for this Warriors team, even though Steph is the best.
So what are you going to do now? So, let's say Steph Curry starts going off, like he has throughout the course of his playoffs. In the past couple of years, when a player does start doing that, they throw LeBron on him defensively. They can't really do that, I feel like, with Golden State because you have Klay Thompson, you have Harrison Barnes, you have Draymond Green. All these guys can shoot. You throw Andre Iguodala out there, he can shoot too. I mean, you can't just single one of these guys out and throw LeBron on him. It's not going to do anything, I feel like.
And the thing is, for the first 3 quarters when LeBron has to actually guard a small forward, it's going to be Kyrie guarding Steph Curry because he can't guard Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson's just too big.
Right.
And so there may be times where they have to take Kyrie out of the game so they can put Shumpert in to guard Steph, and they have to have J.R. Smith guard Klay. I mean, it's so difficult for this Cleveland team to match up. And I guess LeBron's going to be playing a lot of point guard this series.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how Blatt figures out his defensive rotations because we know him not to be a mastermind of at least out-of-bounds plays. When LeBron hit that game winner against the Bulls, he wasn't even originally supposed to be the guy who got the ball. So it's really going to come down to not even strategy at this point, which is usually what finals will come down to. It's more about personnel and to see how they match up against each other. It's really interesting. I mean, Kerr hasn't really been known throughout the season to be a mastermind at strategy. He's just had some very good players, and he's known what to do with them. And obviously David Blatt, you could have a piece of wood coach the Cavaliers, and they'd probably have the same result. So this isn't going to be.
I disagree. Finish your thought. Finish your thought.
Well, I was just going to say this is going to be not as strategical of a finals as we've seen in the past. It's really going to be superstars on superstars, and the best superstars and the best team is going to win this one.
I just want to defend David Blatt for a second because I know no one else is.
Please.
There's been a lot of times where the Cavs could have really folded this playoffs. I mean, not to the Celtics, but to the Bulls, they were down. The Hawks were a good team. They just were injured. I mean, this Cavs team has had an easier road than most NBA Finals teams, but they have made the finals, and I don't think they're firing him, as Matt said before. And they made the Eastern Conference Finals with LeBron and half of Kyrie. I mean, this is a team that could have folded at any time, and the fact they've kept it together is pretty important to me.
I don't know. It's hard to judge because I don't really know how much that is David Blatt's doing and how much of that is LeBron and how much of it is also just the fact that they haven't gone up against anybody that can really challenge them. I mean, the Bulls, what they did in Games 5 and Game 6, they totally, especially Game 6, they totally folded. They didn't even compete at all. And so they're basically they were able to run through the Bulls once they figured out, that the Bulls are just totally weak-minded and inconsistent. And then they were able to take care of the Hawks because the Hawks were injured. They got hurt from Game 1 and they couldn't really recover from that. And also it's just a bad personnel matchup. But guys like Tristan Thompson and Amon Shumpert and J.R. Smith and even Timofey Mozgov really stepped up throughout the course of this year, and especially this playoffs, and they're going to get paid big money. Tristan Thompson's going to get paid big money.
He's going to get a max, possibly.
Yeah, so, I don't know how much of that's David Blatt. I don't know how much of that's LeBron. I don't know how much of it's just like these players have been put in pretty good situations because of the personnel they're facing. But, I'd be interested to see what they do now because this is, like we said, Golden State matches up with them really well. Ron Adams has has coached against LeBron multiple times before when he was with the Chicago Bulls. So if there's anybody in this league besides Tom Thibodeau that knows how to slow down LeBron James, it's going to be Ron Adams. And I think that the offensive firepower of Golden State, coupled with their defensive ability, is just going to be too much. But we'll see what happens.
Should we get into predictions?
Yeah, I was just gonna say let's do predictions. Let's do predictions for winner of the finals, how many games, and finals MVP. Greg, you can start.
All right. I think it's going to be the Warriors in 6, and I want to say Draymond, but it's going to be Steph. It's going to be Steph MVP.
All right, well, I'm going to agree with you on the Warriors in 6. I think it's going to be Cleveland's going to win a couple games in there, but the Warriors, like you said before, are going to have the control. And then I'm actually going to go with Draymond Green as the MVP. Yeah, usually it doesn't end up being that superstar player. It seems like Draymond Green reminds me of Kawhi Leonard, so I feel like he's going to get it. He's going to have that Kawhi Leonard type of performance.
I'll go Warriors at 6. I agree with Greg. I'm just going to pull, because it's probably going to be Steph, but I'm going to go Andre Iguodala. He's going to win finals MVP.
Well, I said from the beginning of the playoffs, the end of the regular season, I said if Andre Iguodala could perform the way he was at the end of the season, there's no way the Warriors are losing. He is their X factor, and he's performed pretty well throughout the course of the playoffs. So
yeah. Him and Barnes have been the more improved players this playoffs, compared to the regular season.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know Steve Kerr, you got to give him a lot of credit, because I don't know how much he really did in terms of, coaching the team, like on the court, the X's and O's type of thing, because they just seem to really know what they're doing. But also, he's instilled a good offensive system, stuff like that. Give him credit for that. But I think off the court, what he's done in terms of getting these players to buy in has been really impressive. He did it with Harrison Barnes. He's done it with guys like Andre Iguodala. He's done guys like, even Steph Curry, who's improved dramatically, and David Lee and all these other guys. So I give him a lot of credit for what he's been able to do in terms of getting this team to where they are now.
Okay, so quickly before we finish up, some NBA quick hits. 2 things. Where does Dwayne Wade end up next year? Does he stay on the Heat or does he go somewhere else?
Miami.
I want to say that he's just creating a buzz because he can, and he wants the attention on him, but I feel like he's going to Cleveland.
No.
It's too stupid not to happen. It's the NBA set up like that, and remember at the beginning of the year when they caught LeBron James and Dwayne Wade saying if this doesn't work out, we're getting back together. It didn't work out in Miami. It's working out in Cleveland, but they're getting back together, I think, this time in Cleveland.
Oh, God.
Wow.
And the final thing, after all off-season acquisitions, after the dust settles, are the Lakers going to have a playoff team next year?
No. This is a team that employs Nick Young. They're not going to be a playoff team.
Swaggy P just got engaged.
Yeah.
The Western Conference is too competitive. I think you give them 2 years. I think hopefully Julius Randle will be able to stay healthy, and then they get a good draft pick. Brian Shaw will be fired, and probably Tom Thibodeau will be over there if he's not in Washington, and they'll get some sort of free agent. Whether is Westbrook a free agent next year?
The end of next season.
Yep.
Okay, so
2 seasons. Durant's next season.
Okay, well they'll get somebody. They're gonna get some big name player because there's no way it's not gonna happen.
Right.
One more question, a third question over here. Kevin Love, where does he end up?
I don't know. I would probably – I want to say Cleveland because he said Cleveland. But you can never really trust these guys until the offseason starts and money starts getting thrown around everywhere. I want to say Cleveland. I'm pretty sure it's going to be Cleveland, but if not, it's going to be the Lakers, I would imagine.
I don't think he's going to go back to Cleveland. I think he actually was talking about the Boston Celtics the other week. I saw a report about that. So maybe the Celtics. I probably think the Lakers, though. I think he'll probably end up there. Get coupled with Kobe Bryant for a year until Kobe Bryant finally just vaporizes into dust, and then it'll be his team. Maybe Russell Westbrook will join him. Maybe Derrick Rose will go over there in 5 years once his contract's up, too, after he's done getting paid $20 million. We'll see.
The funny thing about this is that when we did this hangout last year at around this time, I think it was a little later in the summer, we were talking about where Kevin Love was going to be, I think, too, where he was going to be traded. If I remember.
It's just interesting. He's one of those guys that had a lot of respect, I feel like, going into Cleveland, and then once he got to Cleveland, everybody kind of saw or I don't know if it's his real personality, but kind of saw a different side of him. And now everybody just thinks that he's just a little baby that just wants to go for the money and doesn't really care about winning. He just wants the money. So I feel like that's why a lot of people think he's just going to be gone from Cleveland after this year because it didn't work out in Cleveland.
Getting the Chris Bosh treatment.
Yeah, but yeah, I think so. And looking back on it though, Chris Bosh was pretty good. He deserved a lot more credit than he got for being on that team.
I just think Kevin Love needs a great coach, and that's why I hope he ends up in Boston, because I think Brad Stevens can do wonders with him, especially at like the stretch 4, stretch 5 position.
Well, yeah, but what about when Brad Stevens goes back to Indiana?
We're winning the title next year. Why do we have to get another coach?
And on that, I think we could end this Google Hangout. We want to thank everyone for watching. Well, maybe we'll do one during free agency for the NBA or after free agency and analyze.
We got to do this weekly. I don't know why we don't do this.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah. We got enough to talk about.
We'll
talk some NHL playoffs, too.
Chicago
Blackhawks back in the Stanley Cup Finals.
I watched some hockey the other day, so
there you go.
I can talk about it for an hour or so.
I was talking to you about it on Twitter.
Yep.
That must have been a real intelligent conversation.
It was not.
No.
All right, so thank you everyone for watching. We'll let you know when we do another one. We'll post on Twitter or something like that. But for now, the Google Hangout has completed. So thanks everyone for watching.